So last time we set up the menu, and this time we're going to be setting up the categories and the ability to search for that menu. So you'll have the featured item card on there where it's like one of the pictures for one of the pizzas or whatever. You'll have the list of pizzas, then you'll have like your pastas with the featured item for the pastas, etc. And if you want to search for like your pastas, you can do that. Or if you want to filter it by like your gluten-free menu items versus your dairy-free, etc., you can do that as well. So that's basically the premise for this video. I hope it helps, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started. The first thing I want to cover is last time you probably saw me type something like this. I did like Rails DB drop, and then Rails DB :migrate, Rails DB :seed, Rails S. And I'll full screen this real quick. And thanks to Sean from the comments, he actually pointed out that instead of doing this, what you can do is you can type Rails DB, open up a brace, and then say drop, migrate, seed. So this will do the same thing as dropping, migrating, and seeding the database. And then you can also do a Rails S at the end if you wanted to. So that's nice. And I found this article online that I'm just going to talk about real quick, where they mention that the advantage of doing it this way is every time you use, here they're saying rake, but it's the same for Rails. Every time you use the Rails command, you're actually loading the Rails environment. So when we did the Rails DB drop, migrate, seed, whatever, in the initial, we were actually calling the Rails environment 3 times. And in this newer version, we're actually only calling the Rails environment once because we're doing, we only say the Rails keyword here. And I apologize if you can hear a tile saw in the background. We're actually renovating our house right now, and they are doing the tiling in the kitchen. But you can do the drop, migrate, seed. So here, instead of running it for each one of these commands, we're only running it once, which means you only have the overhead once. So your runtime here is actually like 1/3 of the normal overhead. And then just one step further, you could create a new file at the root of your directory. So you could say like sudo nano rebuild, and let me just type in my password. And then in here, you could do the same thing. So you could say Rails DB : open up a brace, say drop, migrate, seed. And then we can save this. And then let me just chmod this real quick. You can then do a /rebuild like this. And if you run it, it's the same thing as running the command itself. It's just stored inside this file. I would recommend looking into how to build small little scripts like this because they can save you a lot of time in a production environment. So, normally I'll do something like /deploy if I have a bunch of scripts that need to be run. It's similar to in React how you can do like npm start and it'll run a whole bunch of things. But yeah, so I just wanted to cover that real quick. So now we have the rebuild file. The next thing we want to do, I guess I'll show you the demo for what we're building today. So we're creating the categories for the food. So you have like pizza, you have pasta, and you have desserts. So each of these images is actually being pulled from one of these products where the featured flag is set to true. So we're going to be doing something like for this category, grab all the products. From these products, find one where the featured is set to true and set it as the image. Alternatively, you could just attach the image to the category and then just say this is like the category image. I did it this way in case you have multiple. You can then like set up something where it'll like randomly pick one or whatever. I don't cover the random selection here. I'll leave that as an exercise for you guys, but you get the idea. It's just like giving you options, and I'm presenting it in what I thought was the more difficult way. So if you wanted to just do the category images, you could figure that out yourself. And then for the search, it's a little bit buggy because Rails changed the way that JavaScript works again. You can't just submit the form when you type. It causes it to try to like redirect to an HTML page. So I had to do a bit of Apache JavaScript setup here. The next thing we'll talk about is the search and the select for the filters. And now that I'm looking at my code, I'm actually realizing that I broke this in my local version. So you won't be able to see it. Basically, when you type, it's going to filter out these products based on what you're typing. And it'll also have some fuzzy matching. So if you type IZZA, it'll be able to figure out that you want pizza. And I apologize if you can now hear dogs barking in the background. This is why I normally record at night. And then for selecting the filters, you can also select a filter and it'll grab the most relevant one. So that's enough of the demo application, let's go ahead and let's build this thing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is create the scaffold for our categories. So for this, we're going to type Rails G scaffold. We're going to say a category has a heading of type string, a body of type text, and it has a display of type Boolean. And we can go ahead and we can run this. We'll then come over to our DB folder, our migrations, and we'll take a look at our create products. So if we're using SQLite, you could just say t.references categories in here. But since we're going to be using Postgres in the final version of the project, we actually need to create a new migration to add the categories to the products. So for this, we're going to say Rails G migration, add category to products, and then we'll say category : references. And then we can run that migration. We can come in here, and then we don't want the category null false, so let's just get rid of that. Save that. And the last thing we need is, let me close this because we're done here. The last thing we need is the active storage migration. So we'll say Rails active _ storage : install. And that'll set up all of our migrations for us so that we can add images to our products. So now I'm going to do our rebuild command, which should just recreate everything. /rebuild. And now that we have that, we can move on to the actual meat of the application. So let's start by creating the search right here. So for this, we'll come into views, menu, index.html.erb, and then we'll full screen this and we'll start writing some of this code. So here we were doing 3.times do just to get more products on the page, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of this. And I'll address the ternary in a minute here. But we'll start with a .col-12, and I'll link to my tutorial where I cover how to set up Emmet for the auto completion, as well as all of my Ruby gems, or all of my Ruby plugins that do the styling here. But if you want to tab complete your divs like I do, you can come into File, Preferences, Settings. You can search for Emmet, and you can come down to the bottom and trigger Emmet expansion on tab. And that will let you auto-complete in the same way I do here by pressing tab. So now that we have this, we need the form for the search. So for this, we're going to create a form tag, and we're going to set this to be the search path. And since we're using the search path, let's come into our config and our routes.rb. And above the resources categories, we want to say get search to menu search. So that'll set up the route for us. So now we can use the search _ path. And then if we come back into our index after the search path, we set the method to be get, and then we want a remote true, and then we can say do, and then we'll end this down here. Okay, and I actually have the wrong version in this index file as well, so I'm gonna have to probably wing this a little bit. So let's start by creating the div here. We'll say .input -group, and then a margin bottom of 5, I think. Oops. Yeah, .input group, and then .mb5. If we want two classes, we do it like that. So now that we have this, we want a .col-8, and then inside of this, we want to do the text field tag. So we'll open up some Ruby code, and we'll say text _field _tag. We'll do this for the search. We want the search to be empty by default, so that the search bar is empty. We'll give this a class of form control, a placeholder of search, and then we want to give this a on key down, and for this we'll say click submit. Now we need to create this function, and the reason why we're not doing something like this .form.submit is apparently this is completely broken in Rails 6. So if you call this .form.submit, even with remote true, it'll still redirect you to an HTML page. And I have not found a fix for this. So if anyone in the comments wants to mention a fix for what I'm showing with this remote form, something where it works better, please do. You can either link a gist or just put the code in the comments, and I'll do a small update video where we fix this search form. But if we come down here, we need to create a script tag. And inside the script tag, we'll create this function that we just called. So we'll say function click submit. And then for the click submit function, we need to, we'll have to grab the submit button. So we'll say search underscore submit is the ID. And then we want to trigger click. And we now have to actually create that submit button, but we also have to do the select tag. So this handles the text field. The next thing we need is the select. So we'll give this a class of column 3. Inside this column 3, we'll create the select tag. We'll call this filter, and that's just the name of the parameter we're going to use. We then need the options for select. So we'll say options underscore for underscore select. And this takes in an array. So for this, we're going to say the first one is select filter. Then we have dairy free. Then we have gluten. I did it again. Gluten free. Then we have kosher. Then we have peanut free. Then we have vegan. And finally, we have vegetarian. So that's all of our options. Let's go ahead and let's format this a bit nicer. Something like this. There we go. Save this. Then after all of that, I think we also have to add in a custom select. So say comma class of custom select. So that should handle our select tag. And then the last thing we have to do is this submit button, which comes out of this column 3, I think. So yeah, so we come down here and then we say column -1. And then we'll do a submit underscore tag search class of button dark, an ID of search submit, and then we can save this. And now if I come over here and I run Rails S, we'll see if this is showing up on our page here. Yep, so here's our search field, and you'll notice here that we have these weird gaps between our search, our filter, and our search button. To fix this, we'll just add some inline styling real quick. So we'll say style is equal to padding 0, and you could add this into a custom class and do it that way. But I'm already a bit short on time because I do have a call at 5:30 and I'm trying to get this video out today, and this is my second time recording it. So if we save this, we refresh the page, this should fix the padding issue there. The next thing we want to do is for the searching, you'll see here that, well, the search action doesn't exist. But you are going to have a couple options here. For the one that we're doing, we're actually going to set the style of the button to be display none, which will make the search button itself invisible. And then if we're doing the search button invisible method, we want to get rid of this column 1 and we want to change this to a column 4. And then if we refresh this page, it'll take up more of the area. And it kind of takes up the whole thing, and it gives this a quarter and this 3/4 of the search area. But that is about it for the search field. We then come down here, and 2 divs down from the end, we want to say create a div with a ID of menu-products-container. And then inside of this, we need to do a render for the menu/products. So now we have to come into menu, create a new file, and underscore products.html.erb. This is going to be our partial where we do all the logic for actually displaying the products. So in here, we're going to create a row. We're going to say @cats.eachDoCat, and we still have to define this cats variable, but we'll do that in a minute. We'll come down here and we'll say end. Next, we'll say if the cat.products.where featured is true.first.image.attached. And I'm not sure if this is the most efficient way of doing this. If someone else knows a more efficient way, please let me know in the comments. We'll just sort of crowdsource how to how to do this section, I guess. So then we'll create an image tag and we'll say cat.products.where where featured is true.first.image, and then we'll give this a class of img fluid. The next thing we want to do is give this a class of column-12. And then inside of this, we'll create a h1 with a style of text align center. And then we'll close this h1 tag. And then inside of this, we'll say, give this a cat.heading. So this is where we create the category head, and then we do a HR with a slash right here. And then down below this, we do the @products.each do product. And we do also need to define what this @products is, because we haven't done that here. So let's then say end right here. And then inside of this, we want to do a .call-4. And inside of this .call-4, we do a h5. And inside of this h5, we do a product.name. Then we do a p. And inside of this, we do a I guess we changed it to .body now. Or no, this one's still .description. Category is the body one. So then we come down below the p tag, and then we create a span. And inside of this, we say product.price. And then we do a bar here, and then we said, I think we did something like product.catering ? And if it was, we said this is available for catering, else it was just the empty string, and then we closed it. Thanks to Jeffrey in the comments, we actually have a better way of creating this ternary operator. So we'll just clean this out, and then we'll say, instead of doing it like this, we'll change it to available for catering if product.catering. And once I looked at it, I realized that we don't want this bar here, because if the catering is false, then it's just going to say like price of $11.99, and then this bar is going to appear. We want this to appear inside of the if statement. So if the product.catering is true, then we need to separate this. So that handles that. We then come down here below this end, and we need to do 2 more ends. And that should do it for this products.html.erb file. The next thing we need to do is come up to our products controller, and we need to add in a few permits in here. The first thing we need to permit is the product image, and we'll create this in a second. And then we also need to permit the category _ID. And then in the update, we need to say @product.category equals category.find params product. And then we need the category ID. And this is just because we're going to create the select for selecting a category inside of the products edit page, which is what the admins are going to use to manage the products from the server side. And then up here in create, we'll do the same thing. We'll say @product.category equals category.find params product, and then category ID. You could also move this into a private method and call it a before action for the create and update methods. That's going to do it for the products controller. The next thing we do is we come into the menu controller, and let's do a before action set cats. And then we'll come down to the bottom here, and we'll say private set def set cats. And then we'll do @cats equals category.all.where display is true. And then we need to do a def search end. So our index is fine because we're now setting the category before we get to the index page. Our search, we do need to do some things. So we're going to say the query is equal to params search. So we're just grabbing the search params and storing it in a local variable. You could also come into your products model and create a search method here for what we're about to do. But we're going to do it this way instead, because it keeps the logic in the controller for this one. So now we're going to say product.where name like ? Comma, and then %query %. And these percents are what make the fuzzy logic work. So if I were to get rid of this, if you were then to type like IZZA, it would no longer match it to pizza. So you do need the percents on both sides here. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a check for if the params for the filter, which is what we're using to filter by the like type of food. So if it's kosher or dairy-free or gluten-free or whatever. So if this is equal to select filter, which is our default filter setting, then we just want our @products to be equal to results, which is just saying make it equal to the search result for the query. Else, we want to say symbol is equal to params, and this is going to be a bit meta-programmy, but symbol is equal to params filter, and then we want to do a G-sub on this, and we want to substitute the space in here, so get rid of this space between the select filter, and substitute it with an underscore. Then we need to downcase this, and then we want to call to underscore symbol. So what this is going to do is, let's say we call this with dairy free. We then do the G substitution, which, oops, let me just spell this right. We then do the G substitution, which results in dairy underscore free. We then call downcase, which results in dairy underscore free as a string. And then we call to symbol, which changes this to dairy free. So we can then say @products is equal to results.where symbol is true, which is the same thing as saying @products is equal to results.where, and then let's say it's for dairy free. We do dairy free is true. So we'll just put true right here. And the alternative to this is, instead of doing the symbols thing, you would have to do one for dairy, you'd have to do one for gluten-free, one for peanut-free, one for vegan, one for vegetarian, one for kosher, etc. And obviously this is just kind of messy. So instead we will undo this and leave it as the symbol true. So now that we have this, let's come down to our views menu, and let's create the JS for this search. So for this, we'll say search.js.erb, and then we'll grab the menu products container, and then we'll do the .html for it. Is going to be a jrender of menu/products. Okay, and that's it for the search.js.erb file. If we now come over to our server and refresh, so to fix this error, we need to say if product.category is equal to cat. So once we do that and we refresh the page, you'll see here that this is working. We just don't have any products on the page yet. Let's now come back into here, and let's come into our products form.html.erb. And down here at the bottom, let's just add in two quick things. So we'll say do a field. We want this to have a form.label for the category, and then we need to do form.select for the category ID. And this is important. We're setting the category ID here as the parameter, and in our products controller, we're setting it as category ID. If you just made it category in each one, it would try to assign the category itself to be the category ID, and you would get an error. So make sure that you're setting this to the ID. And then we're doing options from collection for select, and then we want to do category.all, the ID, the heading, and then we want the default thing in here to be the @product.category.id. And then the last thing in here is we want to say for the field for the image. So we'll say form.label image, and then form.file_field for the image. So now if we come in here and we go to /products, apparently I forgot a comma in here somewhere. Yep, I forgot a comma after the category ID. So let's save this, and if I refresh now, the products should work. So let me full screen the products page. So if you were the restaurant owner, and I have to delete the scaffolds out of CSS, but if you were the restaurant owner, you'd have a page similar to this where you just come in here and you're like, okay, let's edit this pizza. And I think for this, we need to come into the models product.rb, and we want to say this belongs to a category. Whoops, we also need to seed the database. So let's go do that real quick. Because right here, it's telling us that there is no category, which is true because if I do like category.first, we haven't created any categories. So let's come into our DB seeds file. So we'll say category.create. Don't forget your bang. And then we'll say heading is pizza. The body is it's so good though. And the display is true. We'll create another one. We'll say category.create. Heading is going to be pasta. Body is going to be we can only do so much in each video. And the display is going to be true. The last one we'll do is category.create with a heading of desserts. We'll give this a body of Rocky Rails ice cream and a display of true. Next, we'll come down here and instead of doing 25 products, let's only do 10. And let's change this I to just be the regular I. And for this, we'll say pizza is equal to product, and we'll change this to product.new. And after the catering true, let's set the pizzas category to be category of category.find the first ID, which is this one. Next, let's create the pasta and the desserts. So we're going to paste this twice. We'll change this one to pasta, this one to dessert, and we'll change this ID to 2 and this ID to 3, and we'll change this price for the, well, we'll change this to pasta. We'll change the price to be like $7.95. And then we'll change this one to ice cream, and we'll change the price to just be like $3. Next, we want to set an image for all these. So for the pizza, we'll say pizza.image.attach IO of open. And then let's do HTTPS pixum.photos/1920/1080, comma, file name of I underscore image.jpg. And then we'll just copy and paste this 2 more times for the other 2. So paste. And we'll make this one pasta, and we'll make this one dessert. And we can even change this name. So we'll say pizza underscore image and pasta underscore image and dessert underscore image. But then we need another underscore here, so it's separated from the numbers. So we'll do that. And those dogs are just going crazy. Then we'll say if I is equal to 5, pizza.featured is equal to true, pasta.featured is equal to true, and dessert.featured is equal to true. And then down here we'll say pizza.save, pasta.save, and dessert.save. And that does it for the seed file. So now if we come back to our terminal and kill the server and we do a /rebuild, hopefully there's no errors here and this manages to rebuild the database. Oh, and we did get an error, which is undefined method image for product. So we do need to come into our product.rb, and below the belongs to category, we want to say has one attached image. Can't believe I forgot that. Just goes to show you that even though I made a tutorial on active storage, that doesn't mean I remember to do it right every time. So, you know, if you guys do forget something, don't feel bad because it happens to all of us more than we care to admit, honestly. Okay, now we can run a Rails S command, and let me refresh this page. May actually just go to /products as a whole, and then I'll hit edit. Oh, whoops, I see what I did wrong here. It's been a long night and now a long day. Let's come into the products form. You can see where my mind is. I've been thinking about the production video that we have to do. This is actually at product.category.id. And now if we refresh the page, it'll work just fine. So we can switch between these three. Let's make this pizza a pasta. And we can give it an image. I don't think I have any pasta in here. Let's just make it a loaf of bread and hit update product. There we go. So now if I come into edit, it should be a pasta instead. Okay, cool. Let's get rid of the scaffolds.scss finally by coming into assets, style sheets, scaffolds.scss, and we'll delete this. Now let's come to the home page and we'll go down to menu. And now that we have this error, we have undefined method products for category. So the category.rb model needs to has many products. And then we can save that. And now you'll see that the application looks just like in the demo, except with different images because we're using the Pixum. And then we can search for something like pasta. Oh, and you'll see here that we actually are still doing a request to text.html. So if we come into our index page for the menu, you'll see why that is. It's almost instantly identifiable. Well, we're still using the this.form.submit. So let's switch this to, we want to use our custom. So I think it's like click submit as the function name. And then for this select tag, we want to say on change, make this a click submit, I think is how we do this. And then if we refresh, if we go back to /menu and we type something like pasta, it's now filtering the pastas, so that's good. And if we check for a dairy-free pasta, you'll see that all the pastas have disappeared. We seem to be running into an error here. So if I type pizza, P-I-A, okay, now it seems to be working. So it might have just been an issue with JavaScript. Again, this is kind of a buggy way to do it. Personally, I would say get rid of the remote true, and I would just make it so it redirects to a new page. And the other thing I would do is if there are no pizzas, so if we're just searching for like pasta, I would get rid of this pizza image in the title. But one thing I'm noticing here is if I like delete this and then change it, sometimes it's updating and sometimes it's not. And that's sort of the problem with doing things in a way that Rails doesn't like, is sometimes you do need to polish quite a bit. There is no polish here, of course, because I'm making this project in the span of like a week. But I think that's it for this tutorial. I do have my phone call now. I hope this helped. And I'll see you in the next part where I think we're doing the orders and the shopping cart finally. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. If this helped, remember to like it. And if it didn't help, remember to dislike it so that it gets like suppressed in the algorithm. That way other people aren't subjected to it. Because, you know, you don't want to run into those bad tutorials where the guy just wastes a whole bunch of time and you don't learn anything. So next time, I think we're working on setting up the shopping cart and the ordering system. And then after that, we'll be pushing to production. I have most of the production already set up on a server, so that's running and working okay. So hopefully there won't be any more unforeseen circumstances here, and eventually we'll also do the admin panel dashboard thing. But that might have to get pushed into next week because I decided to re-record this video. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. You know, remember to subscribe, do my Patreon stuff if you want. Links are in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.